Welcome to the Pro Football Report on ADSN. I'm Keven Casey, along with Carolina Panthers Spanish analyst, Spanish announcer, Antonio Ramos, former Carolina Panther and Cincinnati Bengal. Leonard Wheeler, number 37 in your program and number 1 in our hearts. And big matchup here, guys, with Carolina Panthers still only 2 games out of first place.
Yes.
In NFC South. Cincinnati, the defending AFC champions, went to the Super Bowl last year. Have some struggles. They look like they were humbled by the Cleveland Browns this past Monday night. I think let's go to you first, Leonard. You're a former Bengal. You saw saw some of the pieces of Monday night. It looked like Cincinnati, they had some injury concerns at the receiver position. Jamar Chase is out this week also. He's going to be out several weeks. Joe Mixon didn't look like himself. They had some offensive line issues. Joe Burrow was under pressure by the Browns, Myles Garrett and company the whole night. I think the Bengals are a team that could be had. Carolina could be catching them at the right time.
Carolina could be catching them at the right time. Well, first of all, let me just say thank you guys so much for having me on today. Really excited about this coming weekend. And just like you said, the Carolina Panthers 2 games out of first place. And yes, the Bengals were a little humbled on Monday night playing against the Browns. But playing with the Bengals for 5 years and playing against the Browns, they are always up to play us. And so the Browns will always play spoiler every single time. And look, Mike Brown knows that. The entire Brown family knows that. And the entire Bengal organization knows that. But there's really nothing they could do about it on Monday night. Let's
hear what Al said related to the Bengals, despite some injury concerns coming off a defeat. They're now a very dangerous team. Let's hear from Al Holt.
It's just a matter of, how their offense is structured, how we plan on attacking them from a standpoint of coverage, as much as anything, as well as what we're doing with the front, whether we're pressuring or not pressuring. It's really just based on, and again, he gets the ball out pretty quick, So you have to really, really be calculated in terms of how you want to attack them.
All right, Carolina Panther radio analyst Antonio Ramos. Antonio, you see the team from the press box and from the radio announcer's booth. You see this Panther defense. How do you think they're going to match up with the Bengals' injury concerns with Carolina? They're going to be, looks like some good news. J.C. Horn coming back in the secondary. Dante Jackson was very limited in practice. He's a key cog. So what do you think Carolina is going to focus on, Antonio, defensively against the Cincinnati offense?
Well, I think everything starts in the line of scrimmage, right? And Bengals' offensive line has been struggling a little bit. And I know that they signed 3 guys in the offensive line this offseason, but they haven't quite worked out well for Joe Burrow, who is the second most sacked quarterback in the NFL right now. And Derek Brown is playing great for the Panthers. So I think he made some steps in the defensive line group. He's a great defensive tackle. But yeah, having J.C. Horn, you can play more man-and-man cover, helps you with the safety rotation that we're not going to have Jeremy Chin again for the 5th consecutive week, and Justin Burris, the backup safety, won't be there, so that'll be different. And Leonard knows a lot about the safety position. You need a lot of communication, and Xavier Woods and Miles Hartfield should have that communication to help the entire defense. So I think those 2 guys, they're 2 safeties that are going to play for the first time together, so you need a lot of communication there.
And one of the things that I do know as well is that if the offensive line for the Bengals cannot block, the defensive line for the Carolina Panthers, the DBs are in la-la land back there, because we know that everything starts with the pass rush, right? And so even if the DBs aren't healthy, if that pass rush can create havoc up front, it makes life so much easier for the defensive backs.
Leonard, your former DB playing for Cincinnati, Minnesota, finishing here with Carolina. The best friend of a DB, especially a cover corner, is a strong pass rush, because you really only want to have to cover for 3-4 seconds, and hopefully you got a guy like Brian Burns getting in there.
And that is what Joe Burrow is probably fearing today, is that how are we going to stop this pass rush? That they're going to be intentional about making Joe Burrow uncomfortable and moving him out of the pocket. And if they can do that, the defensive backs for the Carolina Panthers, they have a chance to make some big plays.
Now, Leonard, let me stay with you here for a minute. We've heard Antonio pointed out something I've been saying all year. Derek Brown is really coming on. He's commanding double teams up the middle, which leads to single blocking or maybe a tight end and a running back for outside guys like Brian Burns. A guy, I think if like you're saying, Leonard, you're going to get a strong push from the front. Brian Burns, who could be no matter what, you don't know what side he's going to come on. It's play to play, but the opposite side is where you're really hoping to force Burrow maybe to his left.
And if you can create any type of discomfort like that, it takes them out of the rhythm. And once it takes them out of the rhythm, it takes them out of their game plan.
Antonio, what do you think? You pointed out the defensively for Carolina about Derek Brown. How can they, from where you've seen all the games so far, what kind of trends and patterns, Antonio, do you see Carolina? Are they going to stay man? You think they're going to blitz more? Or you think they're going to say, we don't want Joe Burrow because he could beat us. We want to make Mixon and those other guys try to beat us and pound us.
I think it will be situational, and using the personnel that the Bengals are using for that snap. So you need to match up those guys. And even without Jamar Chase, Tyler Boyd and T. Higgins are pretty good wide receivers. So Dante Jackson, J.C. Horn, C.J. Henderson will need to have full this week. But having J.C. Horn again healthy, you can just buy the defensive line more time. We talked about the opposite, right? With the pass rush getting to Joe Burrow helps your corners. But last week against Atlanta, we saw a lot of cover sacks because of good work of the defensive backs were doing and just giving those defensive linemen extra seconds just to get to Marcus Mariota and the quarterback. So I'll think that, having J.C. Horn back really helps not only your secondary, but your front line as well, because you give those guys extra seconds to keep Joe Burrow in the pocket and get a sack.
Leonard, I would just like to say here we have something to where we got something in the locker room. The guys we've been talking about today, Derek Brown, Brian Burns, J.C. Horn, these are the guys whose names kept coming up in trade talks over the years. So these are the Carolina Panthers' top guys. And one thing I can tell you from being in the locker room, Carolina's the last home game after the win, to a man almost that I talked to off the record, they were all behind Coach Wilks. And Leonard, from being in the NFL locker rooms, it starts at the top. And in the locker room, the number one voice you hear is the head coach. I think from being in the locker room in years past, for many years, 25 years covering the Carolina Panthers, that the voice of the head coach means a lot. And I think Steve Wilks has command of the locker room, where I think Matt Rule was a very good coach. Everybody respected him as a football coach, a good college coach. I think the atmosphere is much more different. It's a professional NFL locker room now, and I think the guys. I'm not a player, Leonard, but I think these guys in the locker room for the Carolina Panthers are buying into Steve Wilks right now.
And look, we call it circle the wagons, right? We understand that sometimes when you're in the locker room, what you hear most of the time is that, hey guys, nobody believes in us but us. So let's make sure that we create that mentality. What Steve Wilks brings to them right now is a change, right? And what change means sometimes, it means that now we can create some different momentum. And that's why it was so big for them when they lost that game this past week, is that momentum was shifting. And every player rides momentum. And it starts in the locker room. And if we can create that new belief system in our locker room, that creates the momentum for us to go on the field and then perform. That is why, and then Steve Wilks brings that player coach mentality to where, the players can talk to him like a buddy, like a friend, but also respect him as a coach and as a leader. And those are qualities sometimes that it's really hard to find. And once you find those type of qualities, it's hard to let that go.
Antonio, us in the media, we look around for certain things. And here's a guy like Steve Wilks, West Charlotte, App State. He's paid his dues in the NFL coaching ranks. I am not a player, but I think he got a raw deal in Arizona. I covered the Arizona Cardinals under the Buddy Ryan years. And I don't think that the front office gave him the right roster, if you will. But I think there's a lot more talent with this Carolina Panther roster than he had in Arizona and Antonio. I think better players. A lot of famous coaches, no matter the sport, said Sparky Anderson, the manager of the Cincinnati Reds, used to say, well, what makes you a great manager? He used to say great players. And Antonio, what can we get from this, from the outside, not in that locker room, that we can see from, for me, the press box, from you, the radio announcer's booth? What are you seeing in terms of how the players are carrying themselves, how Steve Wilks is carrying himself, and how he's being perceived in the community and by the populace?
No, absolutely. It looks like everyone bought in since the very first day Wilks took over. I see a lot of fight. I see players playing for his coach. And what Shaq Thompson said last week represents a lot of the feelings from that locker room and the fan base too. The win the day mentality, win each every rep. There's a sign outside the Panthers locker room that says ball is the king. And I don't know if that sign was there before, but those attention to details can make the difference. And I think Steve Wilks is a tough coach, and players play tough for him. That's the message. You as a coach, you want to just transmit what you think, and you want your players to play as hard as you coach. So that thing is a huge change in mindset to me.
And I was going to add one thing to that. I think that Steve he demands respect in terms of he wants to respect the players, and in return, I need for the players to respect me. I mean, we have seen some things take place on the sideline. I don't have to say what those things were, but you saw him take a stand. And let me just say, being on teams like that before, to where I've seen coaches take over, interim coaches, and then the players, kind of act up different ways. That is a tough thing to navigate through. It is, and everybody can't do that. And so taking somebody that not only did it, but received the game ball a couple of weeks ago, I mean, that is really big in order to transition through something like that.
Leonard, I was about to say something. It's very similar, that you can tell. I've been in college sports, professional wrestling, and professional atmospheres, being and covering NFL football for nearly 30 years. There's certain guys. I remember helping Joe Gibbs up on the podium in the 80s. That certain guys, coaches, Bill Parcells, Buddy Ryan, John Fox, certain guys walk in a room, you notice them, you feel that. Right. And I think Steve Wilks, he's Matt Rule, nice guy, very, very, smart, intelligent, very offensive oriented, but he's, he's a regular guy, respected for what he does. But Steve Wilks is kind of like a man. He's walking in, he's like one of those guys you see in the old Westerns. You come in and everybody kind of like, oh, okay. But it's like Steve Wilks, he carries himself with a certain machismo. He's got his feel, and guys pick up on that, and they're going to play harder for that guy.
And look, we all know that at the end of the day, you want to be around somebody that believes in you. You want to be around somebody that understands the certainty, but also somebody that has a sense of urgency when it comes to winning and losing. And I think what Steve offers them is that one, that those years of experience, but he also offers them this leadership mentality in terms of, I want to mold you into a great player and into a great man, right? And at the end of the day, I think everybody wants somebody that they can stand up with, and that's going to kind of cling arm to arm, and they're going to go to war. That at the end of the day, that's what we want in that locker room all day long.
Before we go on to the next one, I just want to say, Leonard, were you on the sidelines or on the field when Kevin Green grabbed Kevin Steele on the sideline?
I was on the sideline when he grabbed them, and let me just tell you. But anyway, go ahead and say what you were going to say, and then I'll add to that from there.
I was in the press box, and we were like, "What the heck?" And Kevin Green, who was in pro wrestling, real tough guy, kind of a free spirit, kind of wild. I guess he'd had enough, and he may have seen, and I wasn't there. You tell me what was going on the sideline? Was he disappointed with the attitude?
Sometimes it doesn't take much though, because when you're in a situation in the heat of the moment, you have words coming from over here, you have words coming from over there, you have emotions that are being channeled, you have emotions that are out of whack. I mean, and at the end of the day, both of them wanting to be right. Well, at the end of the day, both people can't be right. Right. And so at that point, you have this resistance that's happening, and you have this clash of the titans that's happening at the exact same time. And the emotions take the best of both sides. And that's usually what happens in moments like that, is that there's a uncontrollable emotion that's not being channeled.
Rest in peace, Kevin Green. And Antonio, we see from our vantage point, I just see that Carolina with PJ Walker, who started the year 4th on the depth chart, was a backup a couple weeks ago. And now I think his best friend is not just Tommy Tremble, the tight end, but a solid running game and time of possession, first downs, total plays. And let's hear from Ben McAdoo right now. Ben McAdoo talks about the importance of Dante Foreman and the running game.
I feel like we're making some progress in the run game, and I like the way the big guys are blocking. With their double teams, we're doing a good job being physical up front and playing with heavy hands like we talk about doing, and playing with effort and finishing and covering the ball. And we just need to be consistent with who we are. That was a division matchup there last week between those two teams, and those are always good to watch and see because they play each other quite a bit, but we just need to go out there, be ourselves, and be the best version of ourselves and consistent with the way we play.
Antonio, we heard from Coach McAdoo, and I think it's very important that Carolina, if they can get the type of production from the running game that they got from Dante Foreman the last couple of weeks, he could take a lot of pressure off PJ Walker and put Carolina in the second and shorts to where the more of the playbook is available to them.
Yeah, you gotta win first and second down to have manageable third down. So running the football, third down efficiency, giving the ball to Deonta Foreman. If PJ Walker can take care of the ball, he will be probably the starter for the remainder of the season. He's making big throws on second and third down more than any other Panthers quarterback I've seen in the past 2 years. So he's finding DJ Moore. He's trusting his offensive line. To me, this offensive identity is not just pounding the ball. It starts with the offensive line, and that unit is playing phenomenal. Bradley Bozeman, Austin Corbett, the interior offensive line, Ike Ekwonu, your captain on the offensive side as Taylor Moton. So a good running game is because of a good offensive line. And PJ, I think, will be the starting quarterback until he proves he's not. But yeah, I expect that heavy load again of Deonta Foreman having 20 plus touches now that we know Chuba Hubbard is out for the second consecutive game. So yeah, 20 plus touches for Deonta Foreman, and hopefully 100 plus yards and a touchdown. Raheem Blackshear will have a couple of snaps, but I think he'll be just a rotational guy, and they're gonna feed Deonta Foreman again.
Leonard, I think that Bradley Bozeman coming in, a former starter with Baltimore, coming in for Pat Eflin, who's out for the year with a hip injury, I think he's really added to this offense. And as Antonio was saying, Carolina has really done a pretty good job with against Tampa and Atlanta in consecutive weeks. I think Cincinnati is a team you can run the ball on.
I think that they've held their own, right? And at the end of the day, that's all you want, is for the offensive line to give you a chance. And that is what you've seen over the past couple of weeks. Like when I saw PJ make that throw, well, the only reason PJ was able to make the throw, yeah, he did kind of, go out to the right side or to the left side on his side, but the offensive line held their own yet again. So the offensive line continues to show up and show out when the offense is needed.
Who's the guy for Atlanta, the nose guard? Was it Grady Jackson? That guy's a load. Grady Jarrett. He's a load. And if you can block that guy, you're doing something.
That is what I'm saying. I think that these guys are coming together because let me just tell you this. Okay, I have to say this. Whenever a player leaves, like McCaffrey left, right? Well, that's not McCaffrey's fault. But whenever a player leaves, the team says this. They create this cohesive mentality. And it says, hey, we need to make sure that we prove to everybody outside of this locker room that we're all professionals and that it's not ever dictated by one player. I mean, I love McCaffrey, and he's in San Francisco showing that he is worth everything that he received, 1,000%. But the guys take it personal when someone says to them, Well, you guys are going to lose every game now because you lost your best player. And the guys are like, what? You are kidding me. And so what they do is they take it personal and they rise up bigger than you've ever seen before. And that's what you're seeing every week right now.
Now, we do have I hope I'm pronouncing Chidobe Awuzie is out.
Yeah.
He's out an ACL situation for here. So, I go back and I keep thinking that if Carolina, they find somehow to way early, first, second quarter, maybe just pound Foreman, take some shots here and there, just keep the clock going, keep the first downs, the time of possession, and everything going. When you get into the second half, late third, fourth quarter, you may have this team on the ropes, and that's when you look for a DJ Moore who is looking for a bounce back. He's in his second contract. And Antonio, what do you think the mindset of a DJ Moore? He felt bad. I know he felt bad. It cost the team a penalty, but still the kicker missed 2 kicks.
Right. I don't want to say that DJ is going to play with a chip on his shoulder, but he definitely looks like he needs to make up something that, he didn't want to miss or just get the worst case out of Pinedo to miss that extra point. So, I mean, that Bengals cornerback room is not looking good after the Chidobe Awuzie news. Gone for the season. Trey Flowers did not practice all week. He's questionable. Their nickel, Mike Hilton, is out as well. And so also former Panther Eli Apple is dealing with an injury. And look for DJ Moore to have a big day after, what happened at the end of the game in Atlanta. And also, it looks like this coaching staff and PJ Walker are finally giving Terrace Marshall Jr. the opportunity he deserved. And being the wide receiver 2 behind DJ, now that Robbie Anderson is gone, now that Christian McCaffrey that took a lot of that targets is gone too. So Terrace, I think he could be a good factor this week against the Bengals and playing, in front of Joe Burrow, his former teammate in LSU. And of course, Jamar Chase will be out, but former LSU players in this matchup. So yeah, I think they need to take their chances and drive the ball upfield and just try to exploit those Cincinnati Bengals absence in the secondary with DJ Moore.
Well,
Leonard.
I would just say this though, is that I would keep Joe Burrow and those receivers and that running back Joe Mixon off the field as much as possible by running the ball.
Leonard, one thing Antonio pointed out that, he's saying the emergence of guys like Terrace Marshall coming in. He wasn't a guy who saw the field much under Matt Rule, but a guy like Steve Wilkes, who's now the head coach. New head coach, I'm a new sheriff in town. And Marshall has given them a spark. Marshall's been open the last couple of weeks. He's been getting the ball. It's not just been DJ Moore. They've been getting contributions from Marshall, Laviska Shenault, Chai Smith, and those guys.
Well, sometimes coaches have a familiar spirit. And what that means is this, is that sometimes they have who they want their guys to be, right? And then when you bring somebody else in, they're saying, oh man, I remember this guy, he was making some plays in practice. Why don't we give him a chance? And so sometimes different coaches bring different schemes, but they also need a new piece of blood to add to the occasion. They need kind of like a different level of smoke to where it's like, oh man, you know what? This guy brings a little spark. He brings a little movement. He brings some speed. Maybe we can use him, in the middle to kind of confuse the nickel and the dime in the middle, while the other guys are taking advantage of the outside, or we can move him to the outside and he can confuse the defense there. I just think that they're going to have to match T. Higgins, Chase, if he plays, and Boyd. And what I would do if I was the defensive coach is that I would probably play a little 2-man under. I would play something that's not going to put you man-to-man with these receivers, because if you play man-to-man with these receivers, you can't double everybody, right? You can't double everybody, but you can confuse the quarterback and confuse the receivers.
Now, thinking about that, Antonio, what do you think is Carolina's best formula to see? We've talked about the Cincinnati's offensive line struggles. Maybe Joe Mixon's down 100%. Jamar Chase is out. They're still very explosive on offense, but still they're not on all cylinders. Where have you, Antonio, you're now the Carolina Panthers defensive coordinator. Where are you going to attack this Cincinnati offense? Are you going to blitz a lot and just try to put a lot of pressure on Joe Burrow, or are you just going to sit back and just say, we're just going to, we're going to try to let you run the ball?
No, I'm going to trust my front four, to be honest, because Joe Burrow, probably he has, this anticipation, and he's anticipating throws and routes and timing the receiver routes, and it's probably going to be a little bit tricky for you if you just go and blitz him, because he has this anticipation in his throws. So I'm going to trust my front four and keep everything in front of me, as Leonard said. So yeah, you got to put your hands on Joe Burrow. 30 sacks are too many, and they come from a terrible offensive line last year, and they did it to the Super Bowl. So I'm going to just trust my front four and pressure with those guys. And probably Brian Burns is going to have a couple of sacks. He's just 2.5 sacks away of the 6th or 7th place and in the franchise history in sacks. So I'm going to trust those guys do the job.
We touched on it briefly, but Leonard, when kickers missed, games on the line, it's a letdown. You say, well, our guys, you always take up on them publicly in front of the cameras, most of the time anyway, you take up for them. But in the locker room, you're like, dude, what did we just put? You tell me we played this game, and all of a sudden this dude missed not just one, but 2 kicks.
You make me want to pull my skin off my face. You make me want to pull the skin off my face. I mean, my heart went out to DJ Moore, because I know that in the moment he was emotional. He made a bad decision. I get it. My heart went out to him because I've seen that happen way too many times. And then my heart went out to the player, to the entire team when the kicker missed the field goal. But then when he missed the second field goal, I said the game's over. Because you don't get that many chances in the league. You do not get that many chances in the league. And the defense gave you ample opportunities to win the game. Ample opportunities. And then PJ threw that nice ball. It was a perfect win situation. It really was. And the fact that they didn't come out knowing that they would have been in first place, and now 2 games, it was a 2-game swing. Like now 2 games out of first place. I mean, that momentum, you can't purchase any better than that.
Despite the Eddie Pinheiro and the kicking aspect, punting has done well. I think the coverage, punt coverage, kickoff coverage has done very well.
It was great.
As a whole, Antonio, I think as a whole, the special teams are playing well, but you have to make kicks. There's just no question about it in the NFL.
Yeah, absolutely. You made a great point. It's not just Johnny Hecker, who's one of the best punters in the league, but a guy like Sam Franklin is one of the best gunners that I've seen in recent years here in Carolina. So he's getting there. He's helping the coverage team. But with Eddie Pinheiro situation, it's unfortunate. He picked a bad day to have a bad day, and he was 14 of 15 in field goals before the Atlanta game, and 12 for 12 in extra points. So that's even more painful.
Yeah, it was. I mean, Antonio, just like you just said, he picked a bad day to have a bad day.
I'm looking for John Fox.
I just hope he can bounce back. Mental toughness, have a short memory, don't let that game haunt you, and just turn it to the next page. That's what he needs to do.
But that's the quote of the year. He picked a bad day to have a bad day.
And it goes back to 2008. So John Fox, Jake Delhomme, he picked a bad day to have a bad day.
He picked a bad day to have a bad day.
That was a terrible day. No.
Words that will live in infamy with the Carolina Panthers. Okay, we're going to take Leonard. I know you got a football game to get to tonight. Best luck. First of all, Leonard, you are available. LeonardWheeler.com. You're a public speaker. You got a great little setup here on camera. Thank you for coming here. And who's playing tonight?
So Weddington is playing Marvin tonight, and it's the first round of the playoffs. So I'm representing Weddington tonight. Let's go! I am fired up and ready to watch some high school football, but it could not have been kicked off better than this moment right here with you guys.
All right, Leonard, I know you got to get, and you're fast. You still look great. I see it all celebrity golf tournaments. You look great, and those custom suits you get, and you still look fast. That's the number one thing. You look fast. So we're going to say go Weddington. In fact, we're going to take a break. We're going to talk a little bit about chopping it up with Buck. But Leonard, thank you for being here. Thank you for your insight.
Thank you guys so much. I appreciate you all.
Thanks, Leonard.
Thank you so much. Appreciate you, Kevin. Thanks, Antonio.
Okay, let's take a break, and we'll come back and we'll talk for our final thoughts, and we'll go out with a prediction here. Welcome back to the Carolina Pro Football Report on ADSM, also home of your favorite sports magazine show, Chopping It Up with our friend Charles Arbuckle. It's called Chopping It Up with Buck. Buck's going everywhere. He's on ESPN Radio. Buck's everywhere. Former UCLA and Indianapolis Colts tight end. He knows how to grill. He smokes them cigars. I got to tell him to stop that. He drinks good liquor. He's from Houston. I love Houston. He's an H-Town guy. But anyway, tune in. Anytime you see Chopping It Up with Buck, make sure you tune in to Chopping It Up with Buck. Buck's a great guy. All right, Antonio, we're time for predictions. Leonard had to go, but he's a former Bengal player and Panther player and still has dealings with both teams. He didn't feel comfortable making a prediction. He just wants to see a good game. I want that too. But seeing that we're predicting what you've seen all year and what you saw and what your research has taught you about Cincinnati, what's your thoughts on who's going to win and maybe a final score?
Yeah, this is not an easy game for Carolina. And I know the Bengals are struggling and kind of banged up in the secondary, and their offensive line is not playing good. But Cincinnati has a very hostile environment, and it's a tough place to play. And Leonard knows about it. So Carolina has not won an away game this year. But I don't rule them out. I like our chances. I like the Panthers' chances. And they have to... we have to consider that Cincinnati is coming from a short week. They played on Monday night, so that could be a factor too. I hope Carolina can win this game. I think it's going to be a close game, maybe in the mid-20s, 27, 24, 23, something like that. Hope Carolina wins, but it's going to be a tough one. It's going to be a tough one, and Joe Burrow and the Bengals, they don't want to keep losing anymore. They're 4-4. Panthers are 2-6. So they need that win because, Bengals are getting behind in that AFC North. They're 0-3 in divisional record. Carolina is 2-1. So, of course, this is not the divisional game. But, yeah, I think it's going to be a close one, and I hope Carolina wins by a position.
You're calling the game. I'll give you that. So you don't have to give me a winner. That's cool. I'm with you on all those points. I think it's Cincinnati is going to win 28-17. I think it's going to be close for the majority of the game. I think maybe Cincinnati can pull something or maybe extend the lead late in the fourth quarter. But I think Carolina is game. And Carolina, even if they lose this game, I'm not scared of New Orleans. I think Atlanta can be had. Tampa's the team I'm really worried about. Because if they get on a roll, they could win 4 or 5 in a row and never look back. I'm taking the Cincinnati Bengals at home to win 28-17. Carolina will look good, but Carolina will come back, and I think they will beat Atlanta the following Thursday. So there you go. How about that?
That will be a short week for Carolina too.
Short week for Carolina, and you touched on some of the keys to the game, and that's how we feel. That's it. So we just want a good game. I'm gonna be home. I'll have the red zone going here at my house. And it's going to be good. We'll be cooking. Have a lot of things that Buck likes to get into. I'll have them all going here at my house. So we're looking good. Any final thoughts here, Antonio, before you get ready to head up to Cincinnati?
No, Kevin. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here, and just wanted to let all the ADSM fans know that we can. You can listen to us to the Panthers Spanish Radio Network. Tuning in, just go to panthers.com/news/español. And there you're gonna find a link, click it, so you can hear our broadcast. So it was great. being here with you guys. Thank you.
Well, thanks a lot, Antonio. We're going to have to work on our funding for ADSN Deportes and ADSN.
In Espanol, yeah. I got you.
Gracias, amigo, and have a great broadcast. And that's going to do it for this edition of the Carolina Pro Football Report. For Leonard Wheeler, Antonio Ramos, I'm Keven Casey. So long for now.
Let me write. Look, I just took a test and yeah,